Hello. I
Uh,
can't see you, but I can hear you.
there we go. I actually made us go live because I was about to start. Anyway, I didn't want to
Can
keep
you
you
see
going.
me?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, and I can't see you, but I can hear you.
Okay. Well, you don't need to see my ugly mug.
Yeah, that's true. As
Thanks.
long as you can see me. I can't see me either, so I don't know what's going on, but we'll see.
Fine. Okay. Cool. Yeah, we're back. Apologies about the delay. Lisa's was it you're riding a camel or something over there? Or shark at your foot or something?
No,
Um,
I'm in Oman at the moment. So it is 9 something, 9:11 here, 9:15, something like that. Yeah, I'm in Oman. It's lovely. Well, I say it's lovely. It's really hot and ridiculously humid. So I'm not sure lovely describes it, but yeah, it's I'm here anyway. So hello from Oman, everyone.
well, it's good to be back. Yeah, apologies as well about the last few times. Sickness. I don't know how we managed it. Both of us managed to be sick at the same time, which
No.
was something really weird. I managed to pick up COVID from the airport, which was great fun. And then, yeah, you were sick from other things, I guess, as well.
Hmm.
So, not good. But yeah, hopefully this time we'll have a bit of a better run and less interruptions along the way. Um, so yeah, it's been a while. You've been all over the place as normal. Didn't you go
Yes.
back to Kazakhstan?
I went to Kazakhstan, I went to Uzbekistan, I've been to the UAE, the Netherlands, and now I'm in Oman. All in the last God, that's just July and August actually. I've been busy. I've been very busy.
I've been to Stansted. That's where I got my COVID. For those who don't know, I hate Stansted. It is like the worst airport to me. So, um,
Yeah,
yeah,
no, I don't know. I think London Luton rivals it. I think
uh, I've never
London
been there.
Luton might rival it.
I've not been to Luton. I've only been to City and Heathrow. Heathrow's alright. Um, Manchester's another one on my list that's not a favorite of mine. So yeah,
No, there's lots of horrible airports, but then actually I would say Heathrow Terminal 5, not so good, to be honest. Not so good. So yeah, I mean, once you've traveled through, for example, Dubai or Abu Dhabi or Singapore, any of those
yeah.
airports, you kind of look at it and you're just like, what are we doing in the UK?
Hey, my bar is Stansted Airport. So
Yeah. No, I think to be honest, yeah. I mean, to be honest, nothing really makes travel fun though. Like I just did I had to go to London to film something for Cyber First, the NCSC Cyber First program. Then I flew to Amsterdam to do something. Then I flew to Abu Dhabi, then straight to Oman, and now I'm in Oman. And yeah, I just, when you just sort of think, I don't know where I am anymore in the world. Like I need to check Google Maps and see where I'm actually located because I'm not sure. That's basically where I am.
well, getting to see the world and jet setting off. Well, I've got a madhouse to contend with.
Yeah, that's true. I don't have that.
Different lives. What a swap.
I don't know. I think I'll stick with the travel actually.
Ah, damn it. But yeah, so it's been a while since we last caught up. I can't remember when the last one was. It was like June or maybe even May. I think it was one of those. I'm trying to see now. I can't even remember. So yeah, it's been a while. And as always, we are efficient, we are flawless, and we are ruthless, and we have everything well prepared, such that we don't even have any topics planned for today's session. So, um, I don't know what we should start off with. Well, the big one that we were going to talk about was obviously CrowdStrike. I don't know if you want to go down that route. I mean, it's been a while and it's been kind of done a lot, but since
Yeah,
we,
why don't you give a quick briefing on like what happened, and then we can discuss the ins and outs of it.
all right. So I'm pretty sure most people know what happened with CrowdStrike, but for those who don't, CrowdStrike is uh, a it's an endpoint solution. I want to say MDR, but it's an endpoint solution. So it sits on user devices and servers, and it's there to try to detect bad people doing bad things and threat detection and all of that kind of stuff. And what happened is they had this what they term their rapid response kind of solution that allowed them to roll out updates to the devices in a very quick time period. And they do their argument for this is so they can stay ahead of the attackers. So what happened is there was a rule update, um, and that got rolled out, and there was a flaw. Suddenly, all these systems started getting blue screen of death. Windows systems were getting blue screen of death. And because they have so many customers, the impact was massive. And it was basically every single device, Windows device that was running CrowdStrike at the time, that was online at the time, got this automatic update. There was no option to like pause it or anything like that. It got it. So if it was online, it would then get this blue screen of death, and it caused mayhem all over, especially in things like airports. So Delta, or the Delta airline, was hit especially hard with this. Basically, caused all the flight operations to come to a grinding halt. Um, so it was not a cyber attack. We have to make that absolutely clear. There was no malicious activity that generated this. What it was a rule set. I forgot what the target it was. I think some ransomware group they were trying to do a rule set for. So they were trying to prevent the bad people doing bad things. Um, and they rolled this update, and it caused massive mayhem and issues,
It did.
which was great fun because it also happened late on the Thursday afternoon. So just in time for Friday, to people coming into work on Friday going, hey, guess what? You've got a nice weekend ahead of you trying to fix all these boxes.
Yes. And what was quite interesting, actually, from my perspective, was the day it happened, I was in, funnily enough, I was in Uzbekistan, and I was hanging off the side of a mountain in Uzbekistan, and my phone starts going off. And I'm like, oh God, what's happened? There's been some like massive ransomware attack on like I don't know, a hospital or something really horrible's happened. I mean, it was horrible, but anyway, so the phone's going off, and suddenly I'm starting to get all these notifications from clients and from other people saying like all the IT's down. And obviously I was 4 hours ahead, so at the time I kind of knew about it kind of a lot before the UK came online, so I already knew there was a problem coming. So I knew it when the UK woke up, basically what it was going to wake up to. And so, yeah, basically I had to get out of this situation on a mountain. I actually ended up, side note, got stuck on a zip line. Long story. Got stuck on a zip line. Everything was going, cut my hand open. The whole thing started to go a bit wrong. I had to get into a taxi to Tashkent, which is the capital of Uzbekistan, to get to some decent Wi-Fi to try and work through the problem. So it was a really stressful, day. And yeah, basically, I think the problem in a lot of the situations was that the manual workaround was pretty laborious.
Yep.
And so actually you had people who had like tons of devices that needed to have this manual workaround applied really quickly. And it was just unworkable from a resourcing level. And so that became a massive problem. I actually knew a couple of people, a couple of organizations who it was actually quicker just to roll back, to the last backup than it was to try and do the workaround. So yeah, I mean, it was a mess, wasn't it? And I think the other thing that really came out of it for me, and you can probably talk to this a little bit more because you were in the UK, but was that the fear and uncertainty and doubt that some of our community proliferated in that time was really, really despicable. And my argument was always, we need to be reassuring the British public that they're okay and that things are safe and like things are operational, like we will get things back online, don't panic. And yet we had people saying all sorts of sensational stuff.
Yeah. I wasn't too, or at least I didn't see a lot of the sensationalist stuff like the world's going to end thing. I just saw a bit along the lines of some people, cyber attack or something like that. The usual, when there's an outage, it must be because someone got breached or hacked, which is always makes me chuckle a bit. But yeah, you're right. I guess there were incidents. Do you have any example of incidents where people were like kind of losing their marbles a bit?
In my experience, it happens to a greater or lesser degree every time. I think for me, I've had one situation which was really dire, which was a company who basically got hit, and the CEO just decided he's just going to take everything offline, and he panicked.
Yep.
And he was like, we just need to take everything offline. I want everything, every digital asset, every part of our estate, everything just down. Like the whole business essentially shut down from a digital perspective. And it was done as like an extreme containment measure because he was scared and he was panicking and he didn't know what to do and he hadn't got a plan, and the team was in chaos. They didn't know what they were doing. And I think basically what happened was he just panicked. The problem was, once he did that, everything became worse. Yeah. Because now all of a sudden you don't have access to the G drive. What's on the G drive? Well, absolutely everything. Our business continuity plan, our, cascade, call cascades, and all the rest of it is on the G drive, which is now inaccessible. We don't have email. That's now inaccessible. We can't we can't do this. We can't do that. We can't access our database. The website isn't going to be functional. All of these things that weren't a problem now became a problem. So in a sense, he just added a DDoS attack onto what was otherwise, a fairly unremarkable ransomware incident. But again, that's because you panic. And we've seen this happen so many times. This is why you prepare for things, because ultimately you either have to prepare for them or you're in big trouble.
Yeah. This one was also, I think this one was a very difficult and different situation. I totally get how you have to prepare, but like, how do you have backups of thousands of systems that? So take an airline, for example, that all their flights, like booking systems and that, are going to be on like one system, right? You're not going to have, okay, well, I'm at a terminal, I'm going to have 2 tills or 2 PCs just in case the one gets like, I don't know, CrowdStrike. Sorry for the name. but
yeah, I think it's difficult because I also think you can, how am I going to say this? I think you don't necessarily need to have backups for absolutely everything. Yeah. What you need is redundant processes. And one of the things I see time and time again is people are mapping what their important business services are. And they're putting all the usual stuff that you'd expect. And they miss out email, for example. And I say to them, why is email not on there? Oh, well, it's just email. Like it's not important. Okay. If you don't have email, how do you communicate? Oh, well, we wouldn't be able to do that. Okay. So then, therefore, it's almost the most important business service that you have. And it's like, if you don't think these things through and you have no other way to communicate, and you did lose 365 for whatever reason, you're in really big trouble. You're not, and that's just from email going down. So again, I think like it's not necessarily about having backups, although that's obviously important. I think it's also about just working out, how would we do this if we didn't have this? How would we communicate if we didn't have email? How would we do calls if we didn't have Teams? Do we have an alternative platform we could shift onto? And, you know, people slate WhatsApp and they slate all these other things. Okay, they're not ideal. WhatsApp isn't designed to handle highly confidential information, and I don't advocate using it in a crisis, but it's better than using nothing. It's better to have some conversations. And just one other point on communication, actually, in terms of redundancy, it's vital to have out-of-band communication methods, because if the attacker is still in your network, which is highly likely at the beginning of the attack, they're highly likely to still be in your network, then it's prudent to assume that they could have visibility on your communications. And so if that's the case, how are you communicating? How are you ensuring the integrity of the conversations you're having?
Yep. That's very valid. And this is kind of why I think things like tabletop exercises are really, really important. So you can actually work through these things and ask some of those questions. And then hopefully people realize then, when you're not under a lot of pressure to get things sorted, that you can then spend the time and do it properly as well and have something more robust in place.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the key thing. It's about buying yourself some time as well, because if you have no communications and you can't, you know, even your facilities management infrastructure isn't working. So let's say, for example, you can't secure your buildings anymore. You're just losing a load of resourcing to secure those buildings, which could be used to do something else. So again, it's about thinking about what you would do. Okay, do you shut this office and that office? Do you call people into a certain office if they're working remotely? How long does that take? And people just haven't thought these things through, and this is why it ends up in panic.
Yeah, exactly.
On another note, speaking of panic, funny vignette here. So I'm in Oman, and I went diving with black-tipped reef sharks. Speaking of panic.
Oh, you got to do the shark doo-doo. Did you do the shark doo-doo?
Totally, honestly, these things, like, I've never seen them properly in the water before, like not in a cage or anything like that, like literally just in the water. And I was just thinking, you know what? We are so outgunned. Like, we have no chance against these creatures.
Nope. It's cool. It's cool that you did that. Hopefully you got all your digits still attached and all good.
Yeah, I'm not dead. I haven't been eaten.
That's good. No, that's pretty impressive. I've been in the water when there's sharks, but I've never seen them. So I don't know if that's better or worse.
I don't know. The one bit for me was like literally when you put your head above the water and you can no longer see them, that's when I really freaked out.
Yeah.
Like, I was less freaking out when I could see them.
Yeah, that's
not
true.
that I would have been able to do anything, but yeah.
Still try push them away or punch them a bit. Better than just sitting there like a bobbing piece of bait.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, coming back to the CrowdStrike stuff. So obviously there was a panic in that, which we talked a bit about. But then there was also the actual how the organization itself handled it. And I thought they did a pretty poor job, in my opinion. I mean, it didn't fill me with confidence, and me looking at it from the outside, I probably will never do business with them, just because of the approach, especially more the leadership team approach. There was a sense of like we know, or we too good, or something like that. I don't know how you felt about their response.
Mixed, I would say. I think it wasn't terrible. They were relatively transparent. It's difficult though, because I think it's one of those things where they're trying. Where do you want their focus? Do you want their focus outwards, or do you want their focus on coming up with a fix to bring everyone back online? And if their IT team are having to answer all these questions, then it's a really difficult one. I think they handled it reasonably well, actually. I think people gave them a really hard time.
So my view is, especially from the CEO, in that the first few messages, not even a single word of apology, and it just, to me, felt very arrogant, and in some sense a bit condescending. That's just my personal view. There was always this sense of, uh, we we better than our competitors, and this is the reason why, and all this kind of stuff. Um, at the end of the day, what happened is they essentially missed some testing and some good software practices. There's no denying that they've missed a load of things there, and throughout the whole thing, it's felt like they focused more on the actual technical issue than the actual problem, which is the process that they didn't have in place.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you're probably right. And I think the other thing that was really interesting with it was that everybody was sort of saying it was Microsoft at the beginning. Everyone was going, it's Microsoft. And I was like, I don't think it's Microsoft, guys. And people were saying, yeah, it is, it's Microsoft. And it was like, yeah, it was funny. It goes to show, though, how difficult it can be to get the comms right.
Right. And the other thing that really kind of also why I not given them an easy pass. So a few months prior, CrowdStrike had pretty much the same issue happen on Linux-based systems. There were a few updates that caused Linux systems to crash. So that should have been a warning bell to go off and investigate and solve the problem. So it's not like this just came completely out of the blue. So that does two things. It shows that they had some foresight. There was something like this that happened before. Obviously, we don't know what happened out of that. Maybe they did, but it doesn't look like they treated those incidents as seriously as they should have. And also then puts to your point, oh, it was Microsoft. No, well, everyone's like, oh, you have these kernels that having this access and all that, and it doesn't happen on Linux. Well, it happened on Linux. Literally happened on Linux, the same product. So yeah.
And that's not a solution. This is like, guys, this isn't a solution. Like, we can't just say, oh, well, okay, well, you shouldn't use anything like that at all. That's not a solution that we can come up with. We have to come up with something smarter.
Now, my concern out of this whole fallout is this is just going to be another argument that's going to be used of why you don't have a security product on critical systems, which is going to be hard to argue against because it's a very compelling reason. And it's hard to show, well, but if you don't have it, then you're going to have this hypothetical situation happen.
I did
That's my
think it did
concern.
show, though, that ultimately, whilst that's true, there is perhaps a single point of failure here that we're all use. Like, maybe we need more diversity in the ecosystem, because I think that one of the problems was it did become the single point of failure. And I know in their after incident report that they said that, like, one of the things they were going to sort of roll out now is they were going to basically say that if they pushed an update, they would push it by region, or they'd push it by smaller batches, which obviously should have probably been done in the first instance. But even still, I sort of feel like there's probably an argument against monopoly here.
Yeah, I agree. And this is kind of, as you well know, my pet peeve with a lot of the security tooling at the moment, where I feel it's too much at the moment. It's more about marketing, and a brand rather than the product itself. And ultimately, that seems to be winning out over the actual product, what it can offer. And that's where those companies with bigger brand and bigger reputations will get the bigger organizations, even though it might not necessarily provide the best value.
Yeah, definitely. But
And
I think that's, it was funny because one of the arguments that came out of the CrowdStrike thing, the most nonsensical thing I saw on Twitter was that someone was blaming the EU for the entire thing, because
so, yeah.
go on, you've obviously got something to say on that.
Well, do you know why they were trying to take that angle?
I'm guessing it's something to do with like EU competition law, antitrust law.
Yeah. So the whole thing, I'm not saying it's right. Um, the when everyone was pointing to Microsoft, Microsoft showed that it was an anti-competition ruling from EU that forced Microsoft to give antivirus, anti-malware vendors the same level of access that it has to its kernel. So that's why these other anti-malware systems have such high level access, which you have in Linux anyway. So I don't really see that as an argument, but that's the angle. That's probably why that came about.
Yeah, that's true. But do you think that's true though?
As I said, like, I think the problem is everyone's focusing on the technical issue rather than the higher level issue, which is a procedure issue. This is an organization that, let's face it, like, if this was an organization that was just a startup and that, fine, fair enough. They may not have resources in that. This is a massive organization that charges a huge amounts of money for their product. They should be doing the best of breed practices. They shouldn't be just skipping corners, lack of testing that. And that's where I think we should be focusing on rather than, oh, there's some directive from the EU or there was this technical issue in that.
Yeah. No, you're right. And I think, yeah, I think that's true. But I think also there needs to be some international agreements on, like, we have some sort of local, as in national agreements on a regulation, sorry, on resilience and, like, you know, supply chain management to some degree in some countries. I think that needs to be more internationally agreed, because the problem is there are a lot of interdependencies in companies, but there's a lot, even more in a country and even more again internationally, right?
Well, this is an interesting thing that you raise. So, do you know about Dora? Uh,
Yeah.
that is coming in. It's actually live now. For those who don't know, Dora is the digital operational operate oper blah, uh, digital operationalizator. Give myself um resilience act. Um Digital Operational Resilience Act. That's it. Um and it's basically for critical companies that provide critical services. So that includes financial, transport, utilities, so on and so forth. And how they go about making sure that their operations are resilient and available. Now, it's actually in effect. It's EU directive. It's actually in effect now. It's just not enforced. It comes into force in January next year. The interesting thing about this CrowdStrike shows that most companies aren't even prepared for it.
Really?
Yeah.
So the ECB have done quite a lot. The European Central Bank have done quite a lot on resilience, which I think has been really good. And actually, I think that they've come up with some really good solutions on some of the resilience items. But again, I've had this conversation so many times. You can write whatever you want down in a regulation. I mean, look at the GDPR.
Yeah.
Ostensibly a really good regulation. There's no issue with the GDPR in terms of the text. But the issue is there's no enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
The ICO haven't enforced it really at all. It's been almost completely neglected. So what's the point?
Yep. No. Oh, the other thing, this is maybe where Dora might change things. So unlike things like GDPR and that, which the organization is liable for fine. With Dora, the organization is liable for fine, as well as individuals within that organization. So your CISOs, your CEOs, and that, the CIOs, and that. So maybe that might change things a bit. I don't know.
Yeah. But again, like, let's have a look outside of cyber. We haven't seen a lot of CEOs, for example, actually have issues, like
Mm,
actually go to jail. I mean,
yeah.
for example, the CEO of Boeing, God forbid we bring up Boeing,
It's
but here we
a
go.
good
I've said the word
example.
Boeing. So now if I fly, if I don't, no one hears from me tomorrow, I got as a whistleblower or something. I don't know. But let's look at Boeing for a second. The CEO of Boeing left with no repercussions,
Hmm.
with bonuses. And we've seen that time and time again. In fact, not only have we seen it time and time again, the examples that we cite where people have actually gone to jail or have been fined or have had serious repercussions for their actions, you can pretty much count on one hand.
Yeah.
And that's throughout history. So when people say, "Oh, so and so can go to jail," yeah, okay, it's written in the regulation, but let's see what happens. Let's see
Yeah.
what happens with the enforcement, because typically that hasn't been the case.
That's very valid. I mean, proof is in the pudding, right? And
Proof is in the pudding, and otherwise, what's the point? You can literally, what are you going to do? You can literally write whatever you want, but it doesn't mean that anything's going to actually happen.
it's like a company I worked at. They always came, oh, we got this policy and we got this policy. And I'm like, well, do you ever enforce it? No. So it's just a document. It's not a
Yeah,
policy.
exactly. No, exactly.
So yeah.
Exactly. And so that's the problem. That's where the problem really comes for me, that we put so much reliance on regulation, and until people start really enforcing it, I don't see where this is going to go.
Yeah. I mean, I entirely agree with you. Yeah, it's just a bunch of words otherwise. Um, but who knows? Maybe this is weird for me being optimistic, glass half full person. Um, maybe, just maybe, there might be some way that this changes things. I don't think so, but maybe.
Yeah.
It'll be good if it does. But yeah. Um, the other thing I wanted to just come back and get your thoughts on it. Since you are a female as well, and it kind of comes back to the point where I was talking about marketing and PR, and that it was the Palo Alto thing at DEF CON. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I didn't. What happened there?
Oh God,
Oh
jeez.
no. I seem
So
to have been out the loop, and it seems to have been like this gorgeous, wonderful, peaceful mental health break at the same
well,
time.
you're gonna love this. This is just I I don't even. Yeah, I kind of I have no way of explaining what must have been going through their heads. So Palo Alto at the DEF CON, all vendors have their little areas and that. They decided to get two women dressed in very skinny dresses as lampshades.
Oh no.
So they had like a lampshade on their head and then just very skinny clad thing. And yeah, it's there if you want to go have a look. Just look Palo Alto and lampshade, and that you'll probably see the story with the picture.
I'm gonna have to look this up, aren't I? I don't know if I want to see it.
It,
So what was the outrage like from the community?
so one was how it came across as objectifying woman. So that's why I asked, like, you as a woman, I'd like to get your thoughts on that. I'm not disagreeing with it. I think it's in poor taste, and also why? What what bearing does a lampshade have anything to do with the firewall? Like, where's the relationship?
Yeah, I think it's so difficult because I'm in one of these positions where, from my personal perspective, no, I don't like it.
Hmm.
I don't think it. is progressive. I don't think it puts women in the position that I think women ought to be placed in. And I think from my viewpoint, it feels cheap and a bit derogatory.
Yep.
However, at the same time, I also don't want to take away decisions from women to do whatever they want with their bodies. So I feel like personally I don't endorse it, and I don't understand the situation that was there. So again, it's a difficult one, because I do also think that I would never want to tell a woman what she could or couldn't do with her body in other contexts. So why would I hear? And I see that argument too. Okay. So it's a really difficult topic. I think the vibe overall at these events has shifted, and it's definitely less than it was, which is an improvement.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. In terms of things improving, it's still like obviously a problem, and I just also, like, as I said, I even taking the woman thing outside, like out of this discussion, which is still certainly a valid point. Um, a lampshade, like, I still can't wrap my head around that. Like, even if it was a male with a lampshade around their head, like, what's going on there? Like, what?
Yeah, no, it's true. It doesn't make much sense, does it? But I think the other side of this, that's not about objectification of women or men, is also like the merch argument. Like, I think that's also fairly disgusting at this point in time. Like, the number of stores and things that are just, to me, they are just putting out, stuff you don't need, these rubbish pens, rubbish plasticky things. And that's not good for the environment either. And I sort of think as a community, we need to do better across the board. And some of that, unfortunately, means like that fun merch that you used to love to get. Maybe we have to give it up, because actually it's not very environmentally sound to keep using that.
That's fair. A fair argument. I think, and this is, I know you and I have had some discussions back and forth about this, is the things like around DEF CON and that, and how it often just seems very marketing, PR related now, rather than actually focusing on InfoSec. I remember a few years ago where you go read some of the InfoSec media stuff, and you'll find all this cool stuff, like all the stuff written about DEF CON and that, like dedicated articles to it. And now there's like nothing.
No, exactly.
I mean, Black Hat was the one where people would save up their research and the findings. Maybe it's still happening and just getting drowned out. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they would save it up and announce it at Black Hat, and it'll be a big thing. But now the biggest thing is women dressed as lampshades, apparently, which is just bonkers. Like, and this is a thing that really is starting to really frustrate me, is there's so much money now in infosec that it feels like it's just become about the money, rather than actually doing what infosec started out at, is caring, the actual protecting people, protecting systems, and the money was always never really a thing.
Yeah.
Now it
I
just
think
seems,
there's a lot of money in the industry that isn't necessarily making the industry better. I think that's part of the problem. And I think, you and I have talked about this a lot. And, I think there's an awful lot of drinking. There's an awful lot of like yacht parties and this and that. And maybe that's, great and fun. But we also are seeing, things getting progressively worse from an attack perspective. I mean, data was recently out about like more serious ransomware attacks, higher ransom payments than ever before, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And I sort of feel like it's about, yes, it is about enjoying the fruits of your labor, et cetera, et cetera. But I do also think we need to be a little bit cautious that we don't start to look like, I don't know what the phrase would actually be.
Celebrities.
But, yeah, maybe celebrities, exactly. And like, you're making sort of way too much money over a problem that isn't solved, could backfire. those are my thoughts on it. I mean, this is just my opinion. I'm sure there'll be plenty of people who disagree with me. Fine, do so respectfully, but that's fine. But this is just. I've just seen other industries do this. I've seen other industries go a bit like this, and it doesn't tend to always end well from a PR perspective.
Yeah. It's it's so frustrating when you're trying to use some of the tooling and that it's just not you end up paying a lot of money for it and you just simply don't get the value out of it. I
No.
just want to shout right outside the screen and bang my head against the wall and all of those things. And then, as you say, they go throw parties and yachts and all sorts of things. And you're like, what? Um, so this is why I think one of the things we as an industry need to do as well is less shiny, blinky box things and actually start holding some of these vendors to account. So when our thing's not working, we either tell them to fix it or go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Until that happens, they're going to carry on doing this.
Yeah. And I also think, some of the time, I mean, I've spoken to a lot of friends about this as well, about making sure in your head you know the difference between what's best for the client and what's just for your bank balance,
Hmm.
because the two sometimes coincide.
Yep.
They don't always coincide. And I've seen lots of people over the years make really questionable decisions, not dangerous decisions, not irresponsible decisions necessarily, but decisions that aren't really in the best interests of the
Yep.
client, or whoever. And I just think we've got to be a bit careful in that situation as well.
Yeah, I agree. Um, yeah, it's just, I mean, guess it's really trying to get back to the roots of InfoSec. Look, focus on the problems that we're trying to tackle and why we're trying to tackle them.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And I think also sometimes, situations aren't always solved. And I think who was I talking to about this the other day? I think one of the problems we have is that we've got into this situation generally in society, whereas when something goes wrong, there has to be a bad guy and there has to be justice. And the public at large are happy when you have those two conclusions. And the problem with cyber is you're almost certainly not going to get a bad guy at the end of it. You
Hmm.
probably aren't even going to identify who the bad guy is. And you're certainly not going to get justice. Very, very unlikely are you going to get any justice. So you end up with this story that's sort of incomplete. And what ends up happening, and we've seen this a lot, and I'm actually surprised it didn't get worse with the CrowdStrike situation, where we've seen people where employees who have made a mistake, clicked on a link, whatever they've done that has led to the breach, have ended up being identified on social media. And almost like, oh, this is the person that's responsible for this breach. And it's almost like that's the narrative that has to happen. And so you end up in this situation, which is really quite dangerous, because for a start, it doesn't actually help security in any way, shape, or form. And secondly, it's probably going to ruin someone's life. And I could be wrong because I was sort of in Uzbekistan at the time, but I don't think that really happened with the CrowdStrike thing, did they? I mean, nobody sort of named and shamed the individual.
No, no, and I think it would be difficult to do that. But yeah, you're entirely right. Like, if anything, I mean, we've seen instances where it's the intern. Well, is it the intern? Why is the intern allowed to make those changes? That's not the
Yeah,
intern's fault. That's like up the chain.
yeah,
It's your entire process and company. And even like in the CrowdStrike, yes, someone made those changes, someone pushed them out, but that's not their fault. It's not their fault. It's the fault of not having the right things in place to do all that. And that's not a person's fault per se, it's a organization fault. And that's almost always. The only time that it may be a individual's fault is really the only real case that I can really think of is a malicious insider. So someone purposely doing something, then yes.
Yeah.
But other than that, probably not. I mean, it's almost it's like if you go watch these air crash disasters and all these other disasters, there's never always a single point of failure. It's always this that led onto that, that led onto that, that led onto the ultimate disaster. So there's a whole sequence of events that happens, and there's a failures across all of those. If you didn't have a failure in any one of those, the disaster wouldn't have happened. And it's
Yeah.
similarly in like cybersecurity. Someone didn't patch a box, there wasn't the right detection in place. The attackers got in and breached the system, and detection didn't get out. So that's multiple failures there. It's not just one person.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think that's what we're slowly learning with cybersecurity, is that it's probably an issue with the entire organization. If someone's clicked on a link, it's probably an issue with the entire organization.
Exactly, and that's why I think we have these problems with like all these toolings and that they're like, yeah, we're gonna come solve all your problems. You get us, you're not gonna get any breaches, blah blah blah, and it's not that simple. Cybersecurity is very very complicated with many moving parts, and I think the other problem is we have a lot of vocal people in the industry, which is great, but they're all working for companies that are providing services and products. They aren't working in the trenches for companies that don't have a lot of those resources in that. So you have these teams that are doing the best that they can with limited budget, limited resources, many hats, and it's very difficult.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and
then,
I think there have been situations where you've had hospitals whose cybersecurity team is 2 people.
yep, you can't, it's just impossible. How do you
How
manage?
do you manage that? And this is the problem. And I think the term that I read about recently was something called, oh my God, what was it called? I think it was something like cyber inequality or something. And it was basically referring to how, some of the key businesses within, well, we'll just talk about the UK as we're based in the UK, like agriculture, like hospitals, schools, have basically no cyber capability.
Yep,
So, but yet you have banks who maybe even have a couple of hundred strong in their security team, maybe even more.
yep, yep. It's and the problem is, I think people also live in their own little bubbles and that, so they think, oh, you just do this, this, this. Where if the smaller organizations, you have to do it all, and it's very, very, very hard and complicated. So you're talking about a complicated thing that involves a lot of effort, and you have a very shoestrung budget and resources to do all of that. Obviously, they're going to fail. There's no way they're going to succeed because all the odds are stacked against them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I don't know where we go from here, but I agree.
We'll come up with our own magic AI quantum proof solution that will solve everyone's problems.
And that's somehow dolphin friendly and environmentally friendly. It's a tall order.
Exactly.
Dolphin friendly AI.
Yeah, but it's I think it's going to be interesting times. It's kind of weird. This industry is really weird, where we work so hard, we spend so much time of our own time and all of that. We're doing this now to put ourselves out of a job, and we actually never worried about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of scary in a way.
Yeah, I think it's also really difficult because we're an unregulated industry by and large. Like, we work in regulated sectors, but as a sector into and of ourselves, we're a bit of a free for all.
Yep.
And we always like to pride ourselves on being able to sort of self-police on some level. Like, we don't need regulation because we can handle it. We can keep the professionalism to whatever level, etc. And there's been a lot of those attempts in other industries historically that haven't tended to work massively well. And so I think that's the ultimate thing, you see, with anything. Like, if things start to get out of hand, that's where it will end up. It will end up regulated. Well, and if it ends up regulated, it means you lose flexibility. You lose the ability to react quickly and effectively to threats. You lose a lot of the things that we have in our arsenal. So my belief is regulation in cybersecurity as an industry would actually not be positive. It would really stop innovation. It would stop a lot of things. But that is where we will end up.
Yeah, I suspect you're right, unfortunately. Maybe I'll come after my retirement in over many years.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know if there are any other topics. I'm not aware of any other pressing topics at the moment. It seems a bit quiet. I think people are on holidays and that now. Yeah.
Until the next one, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thanks everyone for joining, and thanks Lisa for your time as always and joining. Hopefully it's been useful and enjoyable for those who just tuned in or watching offline or wherever you are. And we will be back next month.
Yes, definitely. I think I'm ever so sorry. I think my camera cut out. I don't know. Yeah, I think it cut out and you just had to listen to my voice, but that's probably for the best, to be honest. For your psychological health, you're welcome. You've been saved.
You just get to see my ugly mug.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, next month. We'll see you then.
Yeah. Have a good one, everyone. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.